For any Xbox or PlayStation codes or cheap games on any platform, use the referral link in the description. It'll take you to g2a.com. Use the promo code CHES over there and you'll get yourself 3% cash back. For all No Identity merchandise, hats, hoodies and t-shirts, follow the link in the description down below to the No Identity Fan Fiber website. Hey guys, welcome to another budgets video here on FIFA 18 Career Mode. Today we'll be having a look at La Liga. We've done Serie A and the Premier League so far. If you missed them, then check the channel page for them and you'll be able to see all of the budgets and board expectations for all of the teams in those two leagues. We'll do the Bundesliga tomorrow, but starting at Athletic Club de Bilbao. So you can see critical youth development, which is very, very important to Bilbao. And they do have in real life a transfer policy of only signing players from the Basque region of Spain, which does actually include a little bit of France as well. But whether you would like to do a series with Bilbao and try and keep it realistic and only sign players from that region is completely up to you. You may have to use Google, though, to find out which specific players are from that particular region, but you'll have a £15.4 million budget to do so, and it's actually a rather small budget for a side that always tend to be there or thereabouts with regards to the Europa League positions in La Liga, relying heavily, of course, on the goals of Aritz Adariz, who's an extremely solid, consistent goal scorer for the club, and probably would be for you too if you decide to take on Athletic Bilbao as your first career mode of FIFA 18. A more likely option, though, for your first team of FIFA 18 would be Atletico Madrid. Critical domestic, continental and brand exposure success expected. Low financial and medium youth development. £52.9 million available to you to spend. Upgrades for players like Kevin Gamero and for Yannick Ferreira Carrasco this season as well. Antoine Griezmann stays at 88 rated, so an extremely good side at Madrid. Obviously you have the youngsters like Saul coming through and players like Koke who are still consistent performers for the team. The experience of Felipe Luis at left back, an upgrade for Jan Oblak this year again as well. So plenty of solid, amazing players at Atletico Madrid to genuinely help you try and win La Liga in Season 1 and genuinely try and win the Champions League in Season 1 as well. One of the best sides in Spain and have been for a while now under Diego Simeone. Can you be as good as he? Well, we'll find out in due course, I suppose, when you get your hands on full release in a few days' time or early access in a few days' time. I probably won't do an Atletico Madrid series this year, but if there is a team in Spain you'd like to see me do a series with, then do let me know in the comment section down below. Moving on from one of the biggest and richest sides in La Liga to one of the smallest and poorest. £3.3 million budget for Leganes and very low expectations everywhere apart from financial, which is just low. So anything other than getting relegated is good enough for Leganes, I would have thought, to be completely honest. Best of luck if you decide to take them on as your first series of FIFA 18. Deportivo Alaves also rather lacking in the financial trouser situation with £3.8 million as their transfer budget. The club worth only £11.4 million. Very low expectations domestically and continentally, if that's even a word, and low expectations for brand exposure, financial and youth development. Again, staying up in the division is main aim number one. Alaves used to be, say 15, 20 years ago, one of the consistent Europa League sides in Spain. They've really fallen away from glory in the past few years, and perhaps it should be your task to try and return them to that glory. A team that have always been, and will always be glorious is Barcelona, who are the next ones on the list. Understandably, domestic success, continental success, and brand exposure all set to critical. Rather unsurprisingly as well, financial sets are very low. They just had a rather large transfer fee come in for a certain Brazilian that moved to France. So you only have about half of what that transfer fee was in your transfer budget, but it's still £115 million, which you can definitely do a lot with in the transfer window, although you will have to look for a Neymar replacement. They do have Deulofeu, of course, bringing him in from Everton, but whether Deulofeu is the answer to your left-wing prayers, I'm not entirely too sure. Still with Luis Suarez up top, still with Messi out wide and Iniesta in the middle with Rakitic and Busquets to follow up, and plenty of young talent coming through as well, and high youth development exposure, youth development expectation, then obviously you can put some of the money into the youth and still have over £110 million left to try and bring in the level of player, the quality of player to help you achieve what would undeniably be a treble that would be expected of you from the board. Win La Liga, win the Champions League, win the Copa del Rey. You may have to wait a few seasons, though, to try and do that or have that level of success at Getafe. One of the teams in Madrid, of course, Getafe, but not necessarily having anywhere near the same sort of level of success as Real or Atleti. So it will be a local derby of sorts when you play either of those other two, but low domestic success, low brand exposure, high financial, as you can tell from a small transfer budget and small club worth, that's understandable, and very low for continental success and youth development. Getafe, not necessarily the sort of side you would class as a road to glory, because they've always kind of been there or thereabouts in La Liga, although they have had a couple of dodgy years recently. But Soldado did bits for them a few years ago, so maybe you could find yourself that sort of player and then sell him on for profit like they did to try and fund future starlets. Moving on from Getafe, we have Girona, and they actually have the smallest transfer budget and smallest club worth of anyone I've looked at so far in the 3 budget videos that I've done to this point. Very low domestic and continental success expected of you, low brand exposure, financial and youth development. This is going to be a challenge if you decide to take on Girona as your first series of FIFA 18. If you do, and you're successful, then please, by all means, send me pictures of your success, because I'd very much like to see some of you succeed at a club that size. After looking at Getafe, who are the 3rd side in Madrid, then we find ourselves at Levante, who are the 2nd side in Valencia, as you can tell from the bottom right. They don't, however, have the biggest of budgets at just £5.7 million, medium domestic and financial criteria with very low continental success, no surprise, low brand exposure and low youth development. Your main aim with Levante, stay in the league. Your second aim with Levante, improve to move up the league. Your third aim, maybe push for Europe in season 3 or 4, but it would be difficult, I think, at a club like Levante to do that. You might have slightly more success doing that at Malaga. They did have an influx of cash a few years ago, of course, and then, well, they kind of spent it all, so they don't actually have much left anymore. £8.2 million is the transfer budget. They did raise some funds a few years ago selling Isco to Real Madrid, of course, but it appears they haven't spent that too wisely either. High financial expectation from the board, medium youth development, brand exposure and domestic success. Obviously, European football right now for Malaga, not on the radar, although they were in the Champions League a few years ago when that money was there. But for now, you're going to have to concentrate on just getting them into the top half of the La Liga table, and then from there, pushing for Europe in season 2, maybe 3 or 4. Moving on from Malaga, we find ourselves at Celta de Vigo, a side that have a couple of rather promising players, and players that kind of come through other sides to do well at Celta, like Iago Aspas, who had a very good season last year. Celta are a side that should be pushing for Europa League football despite not having the biggest of budgets, set at £9 million this year. Medium across the board apart from low continental success. A team that you guess would say would have been overachieving of late, but perhaps they've been overachieving so much that maybe that's where they should be in future seasons, and perhaps you could push for European football with Celta de Vigo in your first season, maybe try and qualify for the Europa League, whether that be through a league finish or through a good cup run in the Copa del Rey. We'll have to wait and see, but do let me know if Celta are the side that you choose to go with. Let me know in the comment section down below which team you'll be using this year. I think I've mentioned that already in this video, but tell me again. Next up after that is Deportivo La Coruña, playing in, well, La Coruña, as you can tell from the city in the bottom right. An £8.3 million budget for them, medium brand exposure, financial and youth development, whereas low expectations on the pitch. Depor have been a side that have been, well, in disarray, shall we say, off the pitch for a few years. Starting to find their feet again, but I think off-the-field growth is more important to them right now than on-the-field growth. And then once you've sorted yourself out off the field and you have a decent amount of money in the bank, then you can start to improve on the pitch and get the results that you need to move up towards the top half of the La Liga table. Well, we've seen the second, third and fourth sides in the Madrid region. Now it's time to have a look at the second side from the Barcelona region. Espanyol with an £8.8 million budget as well. Low domestic success, very low continental success, and medium across the board with regards to the lower 3. Similarly with the previous team, Depor, you're going to want to sort yourself out off the field before you can challenge on the field. But that would be a big challenge to take Espanyol and kind of develop them into the biggest team in Barcelona. It may take 8 seasons, but it would be one hell of a series and one hell of a save if you were able to do it. So if that is the series you decide to go for, then best of luck to you, because I don't think I have the patience to play a save long enough to take a side like Espanyol to the reaches and past the reaches of a side like Barcelona. From there, we move on to the first of the Reals. It's Real Betis up next, and actually they have the exact same board expectations as Espanyol. £13.4 million for Betis. I'm slightly more familiar with Betis now than I was, say, 12 months ago, because we, of course, spent a little bit of time there in the My Player series. Unfortunately, the failed My Player series. They didn't really do that well on the channel last season. So Real Betis, a side that do have a couple of decent players, actually, and a couple of players that very much impressed, although unfortunately they have lost Dani Ceballos to Real Madrid, who was one of their better prospects, so you won't be able to sell him on for a profit of a few million to raise your transfer budget, but there are still a couple of other decent players there, and there is a half-decent squad too, so you could rely on the goals of Ruben Castro, or you could perhaps spend that £13.4 million and bring in a younger, fresher striker. It would be completely up to you. From Real Betis, we move on to a smaller side that I'm not sure many of you will have heard of, actually. It's Real Madrid. £118.5 million transfer budget for them, the biggest in the league, and rather unsurprisingly, domestic success, continental success, and brand exposure, all critical. Just a medium on the youth development. They haven't brought... Well, no. Okay, they have brought through a few youth prospects, but they do tend to buy in youth prospects elsewhere and then bring them through the youth development system rather than kind of bedding through their own youth development right from the very young ages. So, well, Real Madrid are Real Madrid, aren't they? They are arguably the biggest side in the world. And, well, if you aren't winning everything with Real Madrid every single season, then you're failing as a manager. But similarly, if you're at Barcelona, if you aren't winning everything every season as a manager, then you're failing as a manager. So it's a toss-up. It's going to be one of the two. But for me, which is controversial because I know Barcelona have been the side over the past decade or so, Real Madrid are the side of one of the two that I lean towards when it comes to seeing do well. Not entirely too sure why. Can't really pin my my reasoning behind it, but I do prefer Real over Barcelona, I have to be honest. The third and final of the Reals is Real Sociedad. Only a £12.5 million budget for them. Still got Carlos Vela at the club, so you could sell him on for profit if you wanted to raise some extra funds, or alternatively, he could be kind of the main man in your team. Can play really anywhere across the front three. You could play him out wide right where he is designated to be, or you could alternatively play him up top, because he is a half-decent goal scorer. Real Sociedad, with medium across the board apart from low continental success, haven't really reached the heights of 3 or 4 seasons ago since Antoine Griezmann has left. And it's kind of left a big void for them with regards to their goal scoring. So, and their just attacking play in general. They haven't really replaced him properly, and as such are a weaker side thanks to his departure. So it is a little bit of a work in progress at Real Sociedad, but it would be quite fulfilling if you could adequately replace Antoine Griezmann and then take Real Sociedad on to the next step, which is kind of where they were heading before they ended up selling him to Atletico Madrid. Up next is Eibar, who have actually grown a little bit since last year. If I remember correctly, they had the smallest transfer budget in the entire league last year. Now, they have a whopping £4.7 million to spend. 4-star team this year, low domestic and brand exposure, very low continental and youth development with a medium financial. Kind of, not necessarily a go-to, actually, that's me completely lying, but they're a smaller side in the league that would be a half-decent team for a Road to Glory style series. Taking a club of that size and taking them to the upper reaches of European football would be a fantastic story. Unfortunately for me, with regards to YouTube perspective, it probably wouldn't be as popular a story with regards view levels and user engagement as I might need to be to help the channel grow. So it's not the sort of side that I would consider using, but perhaps it's the sort of side that you might consider using for that style of save. And after Eibar comes Sevilla, who are a side that I would consider using in FIFA 18 for a YouTube series if you might like to see it. High domestic success, medium continental, which is a surprise considering their track record in recent years in European football. High brand exposure, critical financial as well for Sevilla. There are very, very high ratings here with regards to board expectations at Sevilla. I didn't expect them to be quite that demanding of you. A £30 million budget, which is enough. They have tended to be a selling club in recent times, though, although they have brought back a couple of players that used to be there back to the club. So we'll have to wait and see if Sevilla can actually do the business this year in La Liga, or whether they're going to be the side that threaten to do something and fall short, as they have been numerous times domestically recently, despite the fact that they have been rather regular winners of the Europa League. Las Palmas up next, another small side in La Liga, only a £4.9 million budget, high financial and youth development expectations, which goes hand in hand, I think, with one of the smaller teams to try and raise those funds to compete at the mid-table area of La Liga. Definitely not the side that you're going to take over and then immediately be pushing for top half in European football with. But who knows? A couple of seasons in, make the right signings, bring through the right youth prospects, you might well find yourself challenging towards the Europa League spots at the end of Season 2. It depends how good you are at FIFA, I guess. And we end with the two Vs. Valencia up first, medium domestic and continental success, high brand exposure, very low financial. They have, of course, been taken over in the past couple of years, so they really don't need to worry about money right now. Youth development is also set to medium. I'm also really not sure about that away kit. I haven't been keen on their red and yellow striped away kits for a few years now. Their home kit is very nice. The black one, or the white one, sorry, with the black sleeves. The black and white kit is actually really nice, but I just do not like that red and yellow striped one, especially when it has the blue shorts attached to it as well. It's just hideous. But anyway, less of that. More about the on-pitch stuff. Valencia, a decent team that could really threaten if you find the right signings to bring into the club. They haven't been as good as they have the potential to be for a few years now, since Roberto Soldado left, really. So you need to improve Valencia if they're the side that you would like to take forward. A side that I would consider doing a series with as well. Kind of Valencia and Villarreal, who interestingly are up next, and the final side that we'll be looking at in this series are two teams that I would genuinely consider doing a series with this year, including Sevilla as well, as mentioned. And as always, I will take your feedback on which series you would like to see from outside the Premier League with regards to making a decision as to what to do. But very high expectations across the board from the Villarreal board, with rather minimal support financially. Only a £27.3 million budget for Villarreal, whilst expecting high success domestically and in continental competition too, and investing quite a bit in youth development as well. That is a little bit unfair, I think. You might find the board being looking over your shoulder quite a bit, to be fair. You might find yourself under a little bit of pressure right from the off if you choose Villarreal, or if you would like me to play as Villarreal. We'll have to wait and see as the season develops, or the FIFA year develops. My first series will be as Chelsea, though, and I haven't made any decisions as of yet as to any further clubs I'll be using after that. I want to just get the Chelsea one underway and see how we get on before making any further decisions. But that is the La Liga budgets video coming to a close. Do drop the video a like if you enjoyed. Let me know in the comment section down below which sides, if any, you'll be using from La Liga. We'll have the Bundesliga budgets video tomorrow. There will have been a Manchester United career mode episode uploaded earlier on today as well, so check that if you missed it. But for now, that's all from me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.